Human Puppy. The year 2022 brought us a really weird movie, Good Boy. It follows Sigrid, a student who meets Christian on a dating app. You know how it is? He seems like the perfect catch. Handsome, polite, rich, and the owner of a huge house. There's just one small detail. Christian lives with Frank, a man who dresses and acts like a dog. He treats the human dog like a real pet, feeding him, taking him for walks, and even taking care of his hygiene. At first, Sigrid is completely taken aback, but after discovering that Christian is the heir to a fortune, she decides to try to understand the situation. Her friend Aurora even introduces her to the concept of puppy play, making the girl think that maybe this is just an unusual lifestyle among very rich people. The problem is that Christian starts controlling more and more of Sigrid's routine. During a trip to an isolated house in the forest, he takes her phone and locks the door. When Sigrid tries to escape, Frank reveals that he's also trapped in the situation and says that the only way out would be to kill Christian. The escape attempt fails. Christian finds out everything and starts punishing Frank while Sigrid tries to find a way out. She finally attacks him and manages to free Frank, but Christian recovers and the two end up being overpowered again. And then the movie jumps forward in time. Christian is preparing breakfast as if it were any normal day. He feeds Frank, who is back in the cage. Then he takes food to Sigrid, who is now wearing a collar and a dog costume, living as his new pet. And then he opens another cage, fills the bowl, and says,
Har du frokost?
a baby in a dog costume crawls over to the bowl and starts eating. And that's where the movie ends. No comments. The mysterious baby. In Vivarium, Gemma and Tom are a couple looking for a house when they discover Yonder, a planned community where all the houses and streets look exactly the same. The real estate agent Martin takes them to house number 9, but disappears shortly afterward. When Gemma and Tom try to leave, they end up coming back to the same place. Every time. After trying to escape on foot and by car and eventually running out of gas, the two realize they're trapped and someone is taking care of them. Cardboard boxes start appearing at the door, filled with vacuum-sealed food that's completely tasteless. With absolutely no way out, Tom decides to do the only thing that still makes sense to him: set the house on fire. He says it's a smoke signal so someone can see it from far away. The two watch everything burn while sitting on the sidewalk and end up falling asleep right there. And when they wake up, the house is completely intact, as if nothing had happened. Except now there's a box waiting in the street, and inside it is a baby. The message is simple: raise the child and you'll be released. The problem is that the baby grows at an absurd rate. Within a few months, he's already the size of a child and starts imitating everything Gemma and Tom do.
How is this my fault, Tom?
I'm sorry, Jem. It's just this place is making me crazy.
Tom refuses to treat him like a son, while Gemma tries to understand what the creature really is. The boy keeps growing, starts watching strange patterns on television, and disappears for increasingly long periods of time. Meanwhile, Tom becomes obsessed with digging a hole in the yard. When he finds a body wrapped the same way as the food, it becomes clear that they aren't the first residents trapped there. Tom gets sick and the boy refuses to help him. When he dies, the creature puts his body in the bag and buries him. Gemma then attacks the boy, who escapes into a maze hidden beneath the streets. She follows him and finds other houses, other creatures, and people who seem to have gone through exactly the same experience, except she can't escape. The boy comes back, puts Gemma in a bag, and explains that mothers die after raising their children. After burying her next to Tom, he returns to the real estate agency. Martin is dying and hands his badge to the boy. Now an adult, he takes his place. When another couple comes in looking for a house, he welcomes them exactly as Martin did, and the cycle begins again. The tire. In Rubber, a 2010 French movie, a group of people gathers in the middle of the desert, using binoculars to watch a movie. And the protagonist of this story is literally a tire. It rises from the sand and starts moving on its own. First, it runs over a scorpion. Then it discovers that it can destroy objects using some kind of telekinetic power. A bottle is the next target. Then it looks at a rabbit and makes the animal explode from a distance. Yes, it's exactly that kind of movie. After sleeping in the desert, the tire comes across a woman driving a convertible and tries to use its power against her. Before it can, another car hits it and sends it flying. Angry, it heads to a gas station and finds the driver responsible. All it has to do is stare at him for a few seconds to make his head explode. From that point on, the tire begins a true killing spree. It breaks into a hotel, kills an employee, and even ends up in the swimming pool. Meanwhile, the spectators in the desert start dying mysteriously. Police officer Chad realizes that something very strange is happening and discovers that everyone seems to be trapped inside a movie. He tries to destroy the tire using traps and even explosives, but nothing works. Finally, Chad enters the house where the creature is and claims to have gotten rid of it, except he didn't. A tricycle comes out of the house and kills the last surviving spectator. The tire apparently transferred its consciousness into it, and now, instead of there being just one killer tire, the creature seems to be planning to build an army of wheels. The interesting thing is that Rubber was made specifically to play with the idea that movies don't have to explain everything. The main character itself seems to exist without any logic: the unicorn. In Death of a Unicorn, Elliot is a lawyer who travels with his teenage daughter, Ridley, to his boss's property in the Canadian Rockies. On the way, they accidentally run over a baby unicorn. When Ridley touches the creature's horn, she has a strange vision, but Elliot interrupts everything by killing the animal. Then he has the brilliant idea of taking the animal with them, except the unicorn's blood starts producing miraculous effects. Ridley's acne disappears, while Elliot notices that his eyesight has improved and even his allergies are gone. But when the family discovers the creature, they decide to test it. Scientists remove part of the horn and create a substance capable of curing Odell's cancer, Elliot's boss. Naturally, he thinks about turning it into a business. The problem is that the baby is still alive, and its parents show up to take it back. A group of hunters tries to capture the adult unicorns, but the situation turns into a disaster. Several men are killed, including Odell. When the survivors try to return the baby, they discover that its horn has been removed. The parents become furious and start chasing everyone around the property. Belinda, Odell's wife, is killed, while Shepard, his son, discovers that the unicorns become docile in the presence of someone with a pure heart, and Ridley seems to be exactly that person. In the final confrontation, Elliot tries to protect his daughter, but is injured by Shepard. The boy ends up being killed by the unicorns themselves, and Elliot also dies. But when the creatures realize how much Ridley is suffering, they use their powers to bring both Elliot and the baby unicorn back to life. And then the police arrive. They find Elliot and Ridley alive, surrounded by bodies and wreckage, and don't believe a single word of the unicorn story. The two are arrested for all the carnage, except that with the police car already on the road, the unicorns return. They charge at the vehicle, which goes off the road, and the father and daughter brace themselves for the impact. And the movie cuts right there. You never find out what happens to the two of them. The armchair. In Killer Sofa, a guy named Frederico performs a voodoo ritual in front of an armchair and disappears. The only thing left of him is a severed foot. Two investigators start looking for answers and go talk to Francesca, who used to date him, and her best friend, Maxie. Meanwhile, the cursed armchair is accidentally shipped to Jack, Maxie's grandfather, and a discredited rabbi. When he touches the piece of furniture, he has a supernatural vision and believes there is a Dybbuk, an evil spirit trapped inside it. The armchair eventually arrives at Francesca's apartment, and she brings it inside with the help of her boyfriend, TJ. The problems begin almost immediately. Francesca dreams about the armchair and finds a mysteriously prepared breakfast. Then the piece of furniture attacks TJ, killing him. The police believe there is a killer targeting Francesca's ex-boyfriends and start suspecting Ralph, Maxie's cousin. Ralph breaks into the apartment to install cameras, but ends up being killed by the armchair itself.
Francesca!
Maxie witnesses the furniture hiding the body and escapes through the window. Meanwhile, Jack discovers the origin of the curse. In the 19th century, Valerie and Gerard Colette were two witches who poisoned people to steal their souls. When the town found out, Gerard was burned alive and Valerie killed herself, transferring her soul into a nearby woman. Since then, the spirits have passed through the generations. Valerie eventually reached Francesca, while Gerard remained trapped inside the armchair. Jack tries to come up with a way to imprison both spirits, but suffers a heart attack. Francesca decides to face the armchair alone, but before she can set it on fire, the police arrive, and then they discover something. Frederico's body had been inside the armchair the entire time. That was where the spirit was trapped. They shoot the furniture and leave, thinking they've solved the case, but they haven't. Valerie has already completely taken over Francesca's body. She calls one of the investigators to the apartment, poisons the guy, and transfers Gerard's spirit into him. Then the two of them kill his partner. The two disappear without realizing that Maxie witnessed everything. She realizes that the curse isn't over and that her best friend is now completely controlled by Valerie. Cursed machines. In Maximum Overdrive, everything begins on June 19th, 1987, when Earth passes through the tail of a mysterious comet called Rhea-M. Suddenly, machines that were never alive begin acting on their own. An ATM starts insulting people, and a drawbridge causes a massive accident. Before long, the entire world descends into chaos. At the Dixie Boy truck stop, cook Bill Robinson realizes that something is very wrong. Fuel pumps, arcade machines, and other equipment start attacking people. At the same time, construction equipment, vending machines, and even toys begin chasing anyone who gets in their way. Meanwhile, Connie and Curtis escape from a truck that tries to kill them and make it to the Dixie Boy, where Bill and the other survivors are hiding. The problem is that dozens of trucks surround the station, preventing anyone from escaping. The owner of the place, Bubba Hendershot, keeps a stockpile of military rockets in a bunker and manages to destroy several trucks. But the machines keep moving forward, and then comes the most absurd scene in the movie. A military jeep with a machine gun appears in front of the station and starts honking non-stop. It's not random. The honking is Morse code. The machine's message is pretty straightforward. The humans will fuel the vehicles or die. Bill realizes they can't stay trapped there. He suggests escaping to Haven, an island where motor vehicles are banned. While preparing to leave, he believes the comet may be being used by aliens to turn Earth's machines into weapons and wipe out humanity. Bill destroys one of the machines from the inside and leads the group through the sewers. They reach the marina, face a few more killer vehicles, and manage to board a sailboat. 2 days later, the machines finally stop. A Soviet space platform destroys an object hidden in the comet's tail, and 6 days later, Earth leaves the region, and that's how the survivors make it to Haven alive. And the craziest part is that the movie was directed by Stephen King himself, who decided to turn his technological horror story into his only directing job. He also admitted that he was under the influence of substances during filming. I think you can tell. The Sloth. In Slaughterhouse, Emily is a college student who wants to become president of her sorority, but she's always in the shadow of Brianna, the current leader and the most popular girl on campus. When Emily meets an animal trafficker and discovers that he has an exotic sloth, she sees the perfect opportunity to get some attention. Except the animal named Alpha is anything but normal. Before she even gets to the university, she kills her own trafficker and then follows Emily to the sorority. When Brianna tries to get rid of her, Emily convinces the other girls to make her the official mascot. From there, Emily's popularity skyrockets. The problem is that Alpha isn't just a killer sloth. She's intelligent and cunning, and she begins a series of attacks. Ava is the first victim inside the sorority, and soon other girls start disappearing. Emily remains completely unaware that her adorable mascot is behind everything. Madison, Emily's best friend, realizes that keeping a wild animal there is a terrible idea and tries to return her to the wild. During the argument, Alpha throws her phone into the street, and Madison ends up getting hit by a car.
Don't go.
At the hospital, the sloth even tries to finish her off, but a nurse shows up in time. While Emily wins the election, Alpha keeps attacking. When Emily finally discovers the truth, she and the other survivors try to escape, but the creature seems impossible to kill. Even a sword can't stop her. In the final confrontation, Emily hits the sloth with her presidential crown, then shoots her several times and finally manages to defeat her. And then, as she's dying, Alpha points to a picture of Panama and says a single word. 1 year later, Emily and the survivors campaign against animal trafficking, but the movie ends exactly where it began, in the jungles of Panama. A little girl and a tour group find a sloth that looks innocent. She decides to take a selfie, but we already know what's going to happen. The teeth. In Teeth, Dawn is a young woman raised in an extremely religious family obsessed with the idea of purity. When she was a child, her stepbrother Brad tried to touch her inappropriately. Something inside her bites his finger, revealing that the girl was born with a kind of vagina dentata, a supernatural structure with teeth in her genitalia. Now older, she attends abstinence events and believes she should wait until marriage. At school, Dawn gets close to Toby, another religious young man who also supports abstinence. The two begin to like each other, but when they finally get some time alone, Toby tries to take things further. The situation completely gets out of control, and he is attacked, having his organ mutated and then disappears. Dawn is traumatized and starts questioning what happened. While trying to understand her condition, she discovers references to vagina dentata online and goes to see a doctor. But the appointment takes an unexpected turn when the gynecologist also tries to take advantage of her. Later, Dawn discovers that Toby died and realizes that her ability may have been responsible, but her problems are far from over. At home, her stepbrother Brad becomes increasingly disturbing, while her already sick mother collapses alone at home. Brad hears everything from his bedroom and simply ignores it. Dawn then goes looking for Ryan, a boy who has always shown interest in her. He decides to help her, but he also tries to take advantage of her and ends up discovering the hard way that Dawn is not an ordinary girl. When she finally returns home, she finds her family completely destroyed. Dawn's mother has died in the hospital, and Brad ignored her cries for help before she died. On top of that, Brad even lets the dog loose on his own father, and when Dawn confirms that her brother was the one who told everyone to ignore their mother's cries, she decides to make him pay. She willingly goes into his room, and Brad suffers the same fate as all the others, if you know what I mean. In the end, Dawn gets on her bicycle, leaves the city behind, and accepts a ride on the road. The problem is that the driver starts showing that he also wants to take advantage of her. But after everything that has happened, Dawn clearly already knows how to handle this kind of situation. The most interesting part is that Teeth uses an ancient legend as an absurd metaphor to turn fear and control over female sexuality into a literal weapon: the demonic turkey. In Thanksgiving, the movie begins with the first Thanksgiving in history. In 1621, when a pilgrim is chased and killed by a killer turkey armed with an axe. In the present day, 5 college students hit the road to spend Thanksgiving with their families, but end up stopping in Crawburg when their car overheats. While setting up camp, Darren tells them a local legend about Feathercloud, a Native American shaman who supposedly created Turkey, a demonic turkey capable of returning every 505 years to hunt humans. Then, a dog ends up urinating on a small totem, awakening Turkey earlier than expected. expected. The creature kills the animal and disappears down the road. Kristen even tells her friends that she saw a demonic turkey, but nobody takes her story seriously. When the group finally returns home, Turkey begins his killing spree. Johnny tries to reconnect with his parents, but encounters the demon first and manages to escape while his parents are killed. Ali isn't as lucky. While she's with her boyfriend Greg, Turkey breaks in, kills the guy, and attacks Ali as well. The survivors then go to Kristen's house to look for information about the creature. Her father is the local sheriff, but Turkey gets there first, tricks the man using a ridiculous disguise, and ends up killing him. When the young people arrive, they find the killer wearing the sheriff's face as a mask. Darren finds a book explaining that Turkey can be destroyed by removing his talisman and burning his body after performing a reversed demonic prayer. The group manages to steal the talisman, but Turkey still kills Billy before escaping. Later, Oscar shoots the demon, apparently killing him, but the body falls into a container filled with radioactive waste, and Turkey comes back to life. In the final battle, he kills Darren and Johnny. Kristen then uses an improvised flamethrower to set Turkey on fire, and finally manages to defeat him. Afterward, she even finds a pretty strange way to celebrate. She eats the legs of the demonic turkey. But the movie has one last joke in store. During a Thanksgiving dinner, the roasted turkey comes to life and screams, showing that a sequel might be coming. And considering this movie, nobody should be surprised. On screen, there's a video of the first part of this video, as well as another list where we show the dumb best characters in horror movies. Click and watch. I'll see you there.